After the building of the docks, Barry expanded rapidly, and by the time of the First World War, the first generation of Barry Town boys had been born, and the Merchant Navy, as we now know it, was part of that tradition. But remember, in the First World War, the Merchant Navy did not exist. It was the Mercantile Marine. It was its stalwart service during the First World War that led to it being acknowledged by the King and the Merchant Navy service being created. Now, many families grew. One such family was the Bubbins family. Samuel Bubbins, the father, came from Manchester, where he was born in 1860, and he died in Barry in 1937. His first wife was Mary Ann Jones, who was born in Herefordshire in 1870, and was to die sadly in 1904, which may have been the result of the birth of her last child. But in 1901, the family lived in 94 George Street, and Samuel was working on the docks as a boiler scaler. When Mary Ann died, he married Eliza Ann Heaven from Gloucestershire, who was born in 1883. She was died in 1966. But in 1911, 3 years before the war, the family are recorded in the census as living in 74 Graving Dock Street in Barry. They were large families. Mary Ann and Samuel had 8 children, and Eliza and Samuel had a further 4 children. Now, their sons served in World War I in many capacities. Charles Stanley, who was the eldest, who was born in 1893, served in the Royal Naval Reserve and the Mercantile Marine. Thomas, who was born in 1896, he jumped ship in Australia, but nonetheless he joined up with the 35th Battalion of the Australian Army. Arthur William, who was born in 1898, served in the Royal Navy. Samuel Robert, known as Bobby, was born in 1901, and as we'll see, he did not survive the war. Albert, the last of Mary Ann's boys, he also did not survive the war. Now, as I've said, Samuel Robert Bubbins, Bobby, did not survive the war, and he's listed on the commemorative roll of the Australian War Memorial at Tower Hill Memorial, London. That is because I believe he jumped ship with his elder brother in Australia and then returned to the merchant service, the Mercantile Marine Service. He was aboard a cargo ship which torpedoed and sank in the Mediterranean Sea on the 19th of October 17. It was on its way from Barry to Gibraltar with a cargo of coal in a convoy. 3 lifeboats were launched, but sadly the one which included Samuel did not arrive. It was aboard the SS Austral Dale. Samuel was aged 16 years. His brother, Albert, who is on the Tower Hill Memorial, as on the commemorative roll, he was born in 1903, but for some reason his date of birth is not shown on the memorial. He was the assistant steward on the SS Moidart, which was sunk by a submarine off of Lyme Regis on the 9th of June 1918. It was travelling from Greenhithe to Newcastle with a cargo of cement. Now, the others all were involved in the war, as I've said. Private Thomas Bubbins, he sailed from Sydney on the 1st of May 1916 and served in the war. Arthur William Bubbins, and this is his CR10 identity card, which during the latter part of the war all active seamen had to have. We know was in the Royal Navy because his official number is J55843, but he also was back in the mercantile afterwards. Charles Stanley Bubbins was part of the Royal Naval Reserve, which was a reserve of professional seamen who were from the British Merchant Navy and the fishing fleets, who I guess would be an army equivalent of the Territorial Army. They were expert seamen who were called upon in time of war. He survived the war. And after the war, well, there is a tradition. And the two younger boys, Eliza's boys, continued with that tradition and served on the mercantile. Frederick Allen was a deck boy, and this is his CR10 card. He was age 15 in 1921, and at that point he was on his third ship. Walter Samuel, he was born in 1908 and also served in those post-war years. They gave a great deal to the world, to World War One. Now, I'm not saying, and it's not right, it's not appropriate for me to say whether those men and boys, because a lot of them were boys, who served in the mercantile marine in World War One were heroes. I'm sure they wouldn't see themselves that way. They were doing a job of work, and that was their career before, during and after the war if they survived. But I think it is appropriate that we take a moment or two to at least think of them and acknowledge them.